And my husband and I are just newly pivoting it into like serving each other in the same mission driven. Like we have our family, of course, and there's a ambition towards our family and a mission towards the home that we steward. But he's an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. We've always done our separate things, but he's one of my greatest mentors. As well. Cool. And so it's just been in the last couple of months, actually, and Grow for God was one of like the final pieces where we realized like, this is really like a together thing, even though it's not just in our heart, it's actually like hand in hand. And so I think that that's really powerful. And I think that God needs more marriages who are actually standing in their ministries together versus these separate entities, because it truly shows the covenant love. And it's a representation of that symmetry of female entity, masculine energy, right? Like all coming into the synchronicity of being empathetic, but also being energetic, like everything is there and then aligned. And I think that's really rad and something that isn't done a lot.
Two become one, right? And that's a real thing. Like if you think about the fact that two separate humans and they become one, and you actually think about that, it does change everything. It takes work, right? One of my mentors taught me very early on. This is a simple rule he taught me in this business. And he's a top broker in Manhattan. You met him. He came on the podcast, phenomenal guy. And he's like, listen, I can teach you how to build teams. I can show you my splits. I can tell you get new developments. He's like, I'm going to teach you one thing. He's like, you go do that for a year and come back, tell me how it went. He's like, your wife gets the golden hammer to ixnay any meetings after 6 o'clock any day of the week. That's lesson number one. You check in with her once a week, show her your calendar. If she needs you, she needs you. She's got that authority. He's like, she probably won't use it 80% of the time because you're growing a business and that's just what it is. Then a daily check-in with her. So before I actually come to the office, she's typically the first person I talk to before I delegate and start talking to the team and everything else. 15 minutes. What do you got going on today? What's going on my side of things? Cohesive vision. What are we working on for the company? What's a priority today? What's not? Sometimes I'll say, hey, we got 7 major launches and projects right now. I need to kind of run the ship today. Cool. She can focus on her stuff. Sometimes she's like, administratively, we got to button down this. You know, it's my turn, right? So like we'll actually converse that. And then once a week, we actually spend time together as a couple. How are we doing? It's literally in our calendar as a weekly reminder of check-in. How are we doing is what it says in our calendar. And we joked in the beginning because it felt really weird where I was like, hey, how are you doing? And we'd start laughing, but we'd be like, genuinely, how are we doing? Like, how's our relationship? How's our parenting with Faith? How are the company stress points for you? Anything you need support with? And I've shared with her, I'm like, stress points with me. Like I got the world on my shoulder. I feel like I can't breathe. And just saying that to her made me feel better, but then also made her understand the position that I was in and that maybe certain things didn't have to get done around the house right then. It could wait a week, right? But communication, absolutely key. Last point I'm going to make, because I could talk about this for an hour. Imagine the power that you and your husband are going to have, that you are two people in one body, right? And going out in your strengths and being able to be playful with those and understand your weaknesses and understand his and be there to support each other. I mean, there's nothing like it when it's done correctly.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. And I think it was when we got to that place of that equal yoke and understanding the strengths and weaknesses and how they actually mirrored one another and we needed each other. And then having God in the center of that, because it wasn't always the case for us. And so operating in two separate entities and then trying to come back together for that, how are you, was really hard because 90% of the week there was not that conversation. The only thing that was really the connecting point was that we lived in the same house, we slept in the same bed, and we had kids together. And that was really it, right? And so I've just found so much joy in operating in this other realm where even if he's not in the same room with me, like he's here, right? And so I love that piece. And I think one of the things that has brought us together and is a symmetry in our connection, Justin, is jujitsu, which is a really weird pivot. You're like, how does that have anything to do? I do not do jujitsu, but we were practicing the other day on the couch. That sounds bad, but great. The whole
I get it. I know what it's like. My daughter has this like life-size stuffed bunny that constantly gets jujitsu.
Rolled. Yeah. They're all rolling. It's exactly the same. So it's so much fun. But I was actually such a hindrance in that initially because I couldn't conceptualize. I didn't want my kids like fighting, especially
Violence.
my daughter.
Yeah.
Right. And I just didn't think that it was the right way from a parenting strategy that I wanted to instill in my children. And now 4 years in, it has completely shifted not only the dynamic of our home, but also the engagement from our son, our daughter. It's been so
Confidence,
incredible.
I bet you
Oh
they're
my
just like,
gosh.
you can see, I wish it was a requirement in schools because it would get rid of 90% of bullying. I promise you. Because